those quotes on point. And he's just defending his own faith. Good for him. Yeah, I mean.
Oh, well, I get it. All right. So we are finishing our caching dealy flippy thingy. So right now we have this thing that says not in cache because we try to look up our, let's see, where am I at here? Where's my cache thing? Oh, both eyes stopped. I just keep going. Shani, just read me the lines. As long as somebody read it to me, I'd probably roll with it. Okay, so if it's not in the cache, then we need to go ahead and get our list of stuff, just like we were getting our list of stuff before, which is with our network thingy-mabob, right? So I'm going to go ahead and grab that code from our airport detail stuff. So here's that stuff, Maddie, that we were commenting out before.
Yeah.
So I'll just go ahead and copy it from here. We're going to bring it into our airport code cache dealy flippy thing here. So how do we get data the old-fashioned way? Well, we call our network thread. We were setting the priority. I think we didn't really find that made a difference, though. We can. All right. I'll leave it there, but I don't really think it's helping. Let's see. Where is my? Okay, yeah, this guy needs to be final as well. So I have my two parameters coming in here, my array adapter, and my linked list. So get data. Let's just put a comment before this guy to explain what this guy is going to do. One way or another, he will fill LL with the data and notify AA of the changes. That's what this function does. He is going to somehow get the data related to this airport code and fill LL up and then tell the array adapter to notify itself that it's changed. So inside of here is his job of going about the process of somehow getting that data. So the first thing he's going to try to do is he's going to try to get it from the cache. We create a reference, we add our listener, we get a response back from our listener. If we're in this else, or in this if rather, it's a no-go. Nothing in cache. So if that's the case, what do I need to do? I need to go ahead and call my network thread to go and get this information. Now, one thing we might do here, just to separate things a little bit, we're probably going to be having some different network type stuff in our code. At this point, we've kind of repurposed network thread over and over and over again, right? We started off by using it to upload all of our world airports to the database, and now we're using it for screen scraping from those other places. We might use it to screen scrape from some other place. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to create a new version of network thread that works just like the current one, but is specific for the task that we're trying to solve. Okay? So I'll right-click here. I'll create a new Java class. This guy will be called, let's call it Airport Destination List. Airport Destination Thread. That's a good one. Airport Destination Thread. All right. So this guy's job is to get destinations.
Is this just a class or is this an activity?
Class. Okay. And this guy is going to extend thread. So he's going to be a thread just like our network guy was. Now I'm going to go into our network thread. I'm going to steal a lot of his juice just to bring this guy up to date since we have all our network code in here. So for right now, let me just go ahead and grab all of run. That'll be good enough for what we need right now. Port destination thread. Okay, so here's our airport destination thread. We're going to have our constructor for this guy. So we're going to have public airport destination thread. Right now I'll have it taken no parameters, but we'll add some stuff here in a few minutes. All right, so down here, we're going to definitely need an airport code for this guy. So we'll go ahead and throw that up here. Private string airport code. And we'll say this dot airport code. Oh, I need to take in the airport code here. String airport code. So we'll set that guy there. So that allows us to create this string, do all our networking crap, blah, blah, blah. So all that stuff that used to work, this now works for him. Okay? Now, he's also going to take in a linked list for our destination strings. Okay? And he's also going to have an array adapter. So he's going to have those two pieces of information just like we had before. So we have private linked list of string, and we'll call this guy destination strings, and we have a private array adapter of string, and this guy will be called that was called AA there. So our destination thread is going to take in a, I'm going to call this destination strings. So this guy will take in a linked list of strings called destination strings, and he'll take in an array adapter called AA. We'll say this dot destination strings is equal to destination strings, and this dot AA is equal to AA. So now we have those pieces of information. Then down here I'll hook those up. So I just call this guy destination strings. Okay, now he also needs a version of himself. So private airport destination thread. Myself, and we'll say this dot myself is equal to myself, or is equal to this rather. All right. All right, so down here we'll do all our network crap. My array adapter is called AA, so after I fill up that linked list, I'll go ahead and notify that the data set's changed, so that happens in here.
Have we done handlers before? Or just our first time handling things?
No, this is the same thing we had before. I'm literally mimicking our network adapter. I'm just giving ourselves a version of it that I'm not going to change because we might use another one.
Okay, I think I've worked for you so long ago, I never implemented a handler in mine. Okay, so never mind, carry on.
Yeah, and actually, I think that we didn't even need this. The whole purpose of this guy was we were trying to get the data set actually, we did need this to go to the main thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the purpose of it.
I use like a run on UI
Yeah.
thread thing, and people were like, no, use a handler, and I was like, what's a handler? Don't know. So.
Okay, but generally speaking, what does this run guy do? If we were so, this guy says, get the data from screen scraping, add it to the linked list, and notify the array adapter. That's what that code does. All right, so Here's all the stuff it used to do, and here's it notifying the array adapter that it's changed. Remember, in our airport code cache, this guy's job is one way or another. He will fill the linked list with data and notify AA of the changes. So if he can't do that with cache, he's going to do that with our, and this is no longer, network thread technically still exists, but now it's called airport destination thread. I'm just going to steal the word, so I have to type it. So, all right, and this guy takes in a string, linked list, and an array adapter. String, linked list, and an array adapter. And then we can do the set priority thing and tell it to start. All right, so this guy's job right here is to go ahead and fill up that guy with the data. Now, I have a linked list, but I need to then update my cache, correct? If I'm in this if right here, that means that when I checked cache, I couldn't find it here. But now I know inside of destination thread that when I get to here, when I notify that guy data set has changed, I now have the data. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my database reference. And what is this guy called? Airport code. Myself.airport code to uppercase. So I'll go ahead and get my reference. And I'll say ref.set value of myself dot destination strings, because that guy's now filled up. All right, so let's walk through what's happening here. All right. Okay. So the purpose of this airport destination thread. This guy's doing barely anything new from what our network thing did. I'm just separating them because we're probably going to do some other networking stuff later. So just rather than always having this thing called networking thread and continually changing what he does, I just said my version of network thread here is called airport destination thread, and his job is to get airport destinations. Okay? So I gave him an airport code. I gave him the linked list to fill up. I gave him the array adapter so he could notify the connected list view when he has his data. He's going to go through and get the crap the same way he used to get it. Then he notifies the data set changed. We're only going to use this if we were not able to get our destination strings from cache. But we only want to ever have to do this once. So after, when I'm here, I know my array adapter is now filled. What'd you do? I know my array adapter is now filled. So then I'll go ahead and create my reference to my database at airport code cache / whatever the airport code was, the uppercase version of it. So like if this was Milwaukee, it would be airport code cache / MKE. And I'll set the value there to my linked list of strings that I've now filled up as part of this.
Question.
Yep.
So my struggle has been, and I haven't been using the handler. What I instead have been doing is I suppose I take it from being an asynchronous call to a synchronous call by throwing a flag in core, which probably is a terrible way to do it and slows everything down.
Oh, you're forcing synchronous?
But I force it to be synchronous. But the thing is that with the way, or with what we designed this program to do, until we get that data back from our screen scrape, we don't really care what's going on.
With what our screens do right now, that's a true statement. But it would be considered extremely bad programming practice to do synchronous calls. I'm with you that it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we're doing here is we're solving that frustration problem. We're saying I can't pause until I have the data. So instead, because Firebase only allows you to make non-blocking calls.
Right.
So because I can't pause, even though that's really what I want to do, because you're saying I don't have anything useful to do right now until I have the data anyways.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But the point is you might eventually have something useful to do while you're waiting on the data. Maybe you're doing a backup or something. It's possible. It's plausible you'll have something useful to do. So what we're doing here is we're kind of passing the buck. We're saying, okay, let me check the cache for you. Couldn't find it in the cache. So I'm going to actually spawn off another thread. And his job is to go do the screen scraping, get the data, and then he's going to write to the cache. Because that's what I'm doing here. This network thread, this guy does all the screen scraping, right?
Right.
And then right at the very end, I let my list view go ahead and update himself. But then I write to cache the stuff I just screen scraped so that I have it for next time. I'm writing it to the database here.
Right.
But this is all happening while technically my program is still clickable.
Right.
Right? Because it's happening in the background. I've passed the buck. So if we start off back in this airport cache, let's just follow what happens in here.
Right.
First I say I want to check my database for the cache. Here's where I'm going to look. I'm going to say check that guy for a single event. Was it there? If no, I didn't find anything there, then what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to create my screen scraping thread. I'll pass it the airport code, the linked list I want him to fill, the array adapter I want him to notify. I'll set the priority for that guy to be higher priority, and I'll tell him to start. So this is an asynchronous call living inside of an asynchronous call. So this call doesn't block. This call doesn't block. So we actually get to the end of this function here.
Right.
And at this point, our call to get data has now ended. Presumably before this guy finishes. That's why I had to pass in all the necessary stuff to him.
Right.
I had to say, destination thread, here's all the crap you're going to need to do your job because I'm about to die.
Right.
Okay, because in this example right here, I am this on-data change function. And on-data change does not wait for this line to finish. That line starts and just non-blocking, it just goes. So after this line fires, we fall past the end of this guy, and now all the stuff that happened in here, all the scope variables, they're all dead.
Right.
And because this was a single value event listener, it's all dead anyways.
Right.
This whole thread, this asynchronous thread that was created,
Right.
just finished. Yet, right before I died, I started one more thread. Said, airport destination thread, save me! I threw the crap at him that he needed as I was dying and said, after you get the data, update the cache. And that's what's happening right here. He gets his data, updates the list view, updates the cache. So that the next time I try to go to like Milwaukee, when it goes in here and checks to see if it's in cache, it won't be equal to null. Instead, it'll be in this else, and I'll be able to process it.
They ever do a write a play about computer science? You're all set.
I got it.
You got it made.
Really make the code come to life.
Oh yeah.
It's good. It's too good. But to your point, asynchronous stuff, it's quirky in your mind, right? So I kind of think of it as like almost like scenes in a play. We have three different things happening right now. We have our main thread that is just everything.
Right.
And then we have this database check-in thing.
Right.
And then we have this thread thing.
Right.
And this thing started as this guy's dying, but this guy's still running.
Right.
So yeah, so you kind of have to just pass things around and say, look, fill this when you can.
But that becomes a problem though, because until that thing is filled, there's no purpose in going to the next screen, right?
You can say there's no purpose, but like for instance, he said he had like a spinner.
Well, right.
You know, stuff like that.
Right.
I needed that asynchronous call to make the spinner spin.
it's totally true.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. So your argument would be that sometimes it would just be easier if it was synchronous because you have nothing else to do.
Right.
And for a long time, a lot of these database APIs gave that option.
Yeah.
So for instance, the one I used to use was something called Parse.
Okay.
And so before I used Firebase, and then they ended up, it was actually interesting. Facebook bought them and then shut them down.
Really?
Yeah, it was one of these like exciting things. Like all of us who were using Parse, we're thinking, oh, they got acquired by Facebook. This is going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And then they just said, by the way, any projects that are on Parse, this is going to stop working in 3 months. And then they open source it, so you can still run your own Parse servers and stuff like that. But Parse let you make synchronous and asynchronous calls. It let you make that decision as the developer. And I would say that for a period of time, I was used to doing it that way, where sometimes, like, I can't go on until I have this data, so I really needed to do something. Modern programming practice would say that you should always do it asynchronously. That way your app does not feel locked up. And then do something to add some life to your app, whether it's a spinner that something's loading or a news article, you know, just something. Because anything is better than an app that feels like it's crashed. Because if you have an app that's sitting there and it's waiting on data and you literally can't do anything, even if you're saying there's nothing to do,
Right.
you might as a user think it's crashed, even though it hasn't, it's just still loading its data.
I want a spinner in the CUW web application because when it's sitting there after you hit the submit button, and I'm not the webmaster, so I can't do this, people think it's broken, so they hit the submit button like 30 times, and then admission calls up, why did we get 30 apps in a row? And I'm like, you need a spinner.
Well, and what some people will do is they will like pre-populate a list view with test data that just says loading or something like that. That way you can, you know, when you're sitting there in an app, you just kind of like mindlessly swipe, you know, so it feels alive. Then you feel like the app hasn't crashed, you know, even though you're not doing anything useful.
How would you tell it to be synchronous? Because, like, you know, I'm used to like asynchronous in the JavaScript paradigm. So say you're doing, you know, XML HTTP calls or whatever those are. You're basically doing AJAX calls in JavaScript. Like, how do you tell it? Like, you have to set up handlers in whatever framework you're using. Otherwise, the code will just execute serial on through it. If you don't have handlers,
but AJAX is an asynchronous protocol.
Well, that's what I mean, though. But I mean, like, how would you tell Java, for example, in the same word, like, stop until you hear back on this?
Tell a thread to sleep.
Okay, because that's what I'm talking about. I mean, like, it's a nice framework because it allows you to say, okay, when you finally hear back, because you don't know when you're going to hear back.
Yeah.
When you finally hear back, go do this stuff. But if it was all in serial, you'd have to figure out a way to store
Yeah,
it.
and that's kind of the point. The modern approach. So if we roll back, let's call it 6-7 years. It was probably still somewhat common practice to sometimes do things synchronously, sometimes do things asynchronously. I think now it's basically synchronous is always bad. So learn how to play the asynchronous game. Whether you can do anything real without having data yet or not. So it's that type of thing. So we're effectively playing that game here, right?
But that becomes a trick with even the looper though too, right? Because in effect, all it's doing is just sitting there waiting for things to constantly come before it goes to the notified data set change, right?
What are you talking about? This guy down here?
No, on the which one's? Destination thread will be what it's in now, right? There the handler where it's looper.get main looper.
Yeah, but this doesn't loop. Yeah, this is not a loop. It just sounds like it's a looper. So this looper thing kind of comes from game programming. So this is your, you know, there is a main loop that your app is running on.
Right.
And it's called, main looper is that main thread.
Yeah.
So, and this guy being runnable. So post says when I get notified. So post says that this is the observer design pattern. We're seeing an additional, another angle of the observer design pattern where we're saying when a new message is posted to this guy, to our main thread. So this spawns off a new thread. At that point in time, actually this guy does not wait. This is just an inline thread. So we're creating a brand new thread here, but we're joining the main loop, the UI thread. And the reason we did that, so this is our public void run, just like we had public void run up here.
Right.
So this guy is just another thread, but it's us kind of hijacking the main thread, which all the user interface stuff is on.
Right.
And the whole purpose of that was just to say, I want to update I want to notify data set change so my list view updates.
Right. And that's what I was trying to say before. Like the way that I've got mine set up right now is I ignore the handler completely. I don't even have that in my code, and I just flag it out synchronously. So no data set change happens until I get the data that I want.
Yeah, I don't actually think that this is necessary. I think we would accomplish the same thing without this. We'll try it in a second. I think this was when we were trying to speed things up by moving it onto the UI thread.
You get an error. That's what I had to do. That's why I used a similar but different method. You get an error like Android doesn't let you modify text elements except on the main UI thread.
Oh,
So
that's right. That's
why
right.
you spun this off.
Yeah, because this guy, this specifically updates the list view.
So if you're in a spawn thread and you're trying to modify an activity text element or whatever, it's
If we're changing user interface, we have to do it on the main thread.
Exactly.
That's the
So you
punchline.
gotta figure out how to get myself onto the main thread.
Yeah.
And that's what you did.
Right.
And I didn't do that, so I get errors because I use like an arcane method that people are like, don't
I
use
see.
this, but it made sense.
But this guy right here would not have to be in there.
Correct.
This guy right here could be someplace else.
The only thing is the array adapter. That's the only line you really need in there.
Yeah. In fact, we probably could do this outside of this, but I'll just leave it in there for right now.
You can even probably wrap the entire like communication inside of the handler and try to make it work. I don't know if it let you. Maybe you did, but like if you took the handler and you threw it up at the top, and then
Well, then
if
you're
you
running
have
everything on the
try-
main thread, and but at that point, you're just slowing down your app for no good reason.
I know, but I mean, you should see how it
No. All right. So in any case, the whole punchline here is after I have my data the old-fashioned way by screen scraping, I'll go ahead and throw it into cache. But this was my second asynchronous call here because my first asynchronous call happened here. Check cache, didn't find it. Go ahead and get it the old-fashioned way, and this guy also will go ahead and write it to cache so that the next time through, I won't get into this if because it will be in cache, and instead I'll get into this else. So let's see this guy run. Let me make sure here in my detail activity. So here's my airport code cache thing. I give it the airport code. And then I tell him to get the data. I give him the array adapter and the linked list, and I'm expecting him to fill that linked list up and notify that array adapter when it's good to go, one way or another. So he's going to go do his thing. This guy looks in cache. If it doesn't find it, it gets to the old-fashioned way and updates cache. If he does find it in cache, we haven't written the code yet, but this else will actually grab it from cache. Okay. So we'll go ahead and run this. I'll show you our database again here real quick. So notice we have nothing in our database at that. We have no cache endpoints. Actually, I'll leave that open like that. All right, so we'll go to our airport list. We'll do our, since we're doing Milwaukee very often, I'll go ahead and click on that. Okay, so it's trying to, well, it already tried to find the stuff, couldn't. So now it's running this guy here. And I would have expected my database to update over there, but I don't see it updating. Why? Well, we got this stuff, so that part worked. Why isn't this guy updated with the stuff from cache? Oh, just because it wasn't connected real time or something. So there's our airport code cache. There's Milwaukee, and here's all the elements from our database. So each one is going to have our string in it for our Atlanta. So there's all our cache stuff. All right.
Is that an error with the fact that there's a double quote up there? Does that need to be parsed out?
Probably.
Is there any significance to why it skips from 0, 1, then it goes to 10?
Just the order in which it did it. I mean, just because the stuff is displaying in this order doesn't mean that's how it's stored. Because this is a unique identifier along with a value.
Okay.
Unique identifier is the fact that they're in order is very much a human thing. Right? Because if you look at our world stuff here, we have all these crazy things. Actually, those are in order too, aren't they? Yeah. But inside of there, do we have the...
It stores them in alpha order, not numeric order. So
Where's my credit cards? Yeah, here. Like our credit cards, we have this unique dealy flippy thing here for our credit card information. So this is our unique name for that, just as, 1 is the unique name for this inside of that destination.
Question: so is it storing those? It's treating those unique IDs as strings because it's going to go 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, blah blah blah, then 2, but without anything behind it. So is that just alpha order as opposed to numeric order? If you scroll down, it's going to jump to 2. The missing 2 is right there.
Yeah.
And then the missing 3, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it seems like that's the case. But I mean, I don't know.
You could care less because.
Yeah, I don't know that you should. Yeah, I don't think you should count on something specific.
Right, because you could end up with the.
Because we don't even know what order it's going to give us it coming back.
Yeah. Do you ever use those, or is it always just get child and it'll figure out?
Well, this would be the key.
Yeah.
So you might be interested in the key. We used it for the credit card.
Right.
With
I don't
our.
have to know what it is. I just tell it get the key and it'll go find the key.
Yeah. So in this case, the key will be 0, or key will be 1, or key will be 10. So that's our unique keys, I guess. So do these all have double quotes in front of them? I wonder why that is. Is that just what it looked like? Well, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just say that's part of the nature of that data. All right, so now the stuff is stored in cache. So that the next time we go to run this, we should get into this else, where it says it is in cache. And what I'm going to go ahead and do here, I'm going to go ahead and display that so we can look at what it looks like to know how to process it. All right, so this next time we expect it to get into this else. All right, so here's what this thing looks like. The key is MKE. The value is a bunch of strings, but the value is actually a data snapshot. All right, so I need to get the value out of that guy first. And then I need to go through the children of that data snapshot. So we'll say data snapshot val is equal to data snapshot dot get value. All right, and this guy should be a data snapshot. Oop. Okay, because the value of this guy is a data snapshot. That's what he is. All right, so now I want to go through that and I want to get all of the values in that, that data snapshot. So for data snapshot ds in val dot get children, it's actually val dot actually it's it's this dot get children. Yeah, so it's val.get children. It's the value of this, and I want all the children there. And then let's just do a system.out.println. Put some things like that, and we'll do ds.getValue. So that should print out all of those individual pieces of information. Let's just make sure we're getting the right stuff. So we're just walking through our cache data and making sure we're piecing it apart the right way. Okay, we are not. So I think it's actually that. I stepped one level too far. Yep, so there's all our data that's in cache. Okay, and so we'll just go ahead and fill up our linked list, because that's the job of this guy, fill up our linked list with that stuff. So we'll say ll.add ds.getValue. This guy's actually a string, so it can just cast it to a string. We know what he is. And then after we're done with that, we can say aa.notify dataset changed. And that's it. That's us reading it from cache now, right? Airport list, MKE filter. How quick that was. Pretty slick. And now if I click on Baltimore, it's going to be slow the first time. But we're going to see that this guy is going to update with Baltimore. It's funny how it's not updating in real time. There's our Baltimore. So even though that took a little bit of time that time through, if I hit back and I click Baltimore again, it's there real quick because it loaded it from cache. Make sense? So pretty solid. All right, so that allows us to kind of go through our data more quickly the more times we're clicking on real places, right? You know, so the first time we click on any airport, it'll be a little slower, but then we're going to start getting collections of things. If we want to, how would it work if I wanted to, I want to add one thing here. I want to put also the name of the city, just so we don't just have the code here. I think that'll be helpful since we don't have the codes memorized. But how would this work if I wanted to have a button in here that said, I want to go ahead and refresh the cache? Don't just use the cache that's already there. What would I have to do? So I'd obviously need a button. But when I click that button, what would the logic be? Well, how would I change whether it's true or false? How do I make it so that when I try to get data, it can't find it in the cache? I delete the cache, right? You don't want the cache anymore? Delete the cache. Then try to reload the screen and it'll just naturally do it on its own, right? So let's add those couple of pieces. So first, let's get the names in there. Just to get the ball rolling here, I need to go back to our airport list thing because right now I'm only putting airport code as my extra. I need to also get the name I dot put extra, what's this guy, city name. And we're going to call this guy selected airport.city. And I think we just want city name because we're, these are all, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. We don't have multiple information. We want this to kind of follow through. So that way at the top of these screens, we will get the airport code as well as the city name. Those two pieces of information. Detail. All right, I'm also going to need to, when I call this another time, I'm going to need to put extra city name. And this will be parts at bucket. Ooh, this one's going to be tougher. It's going to be everything but the last bucket. Because you might have some spaces and stuff like that in there. So I need to build up my city name here. And I guess we would put spaces between them.
So could you do your substring like this is what I recommend. Do your substring where you start at character 0 and then go to length -4 because you always have a 3-digit code in the space.
Could do that.
So,
yeah.
Because you're gonna have
Assuming that's definitely the rule that airport codes are always 3.
They are.
Okay, if that's the case, you could do that.
So, anyways, that's what.
Yeah, but I didn't do it that way, so just move on with life. But I can still make it work that way. I wouldn't have to change very much. But it's I've already written half this for loop, so we're just gonna keep going. So this is parts.length -1. So I'm going to go through all of my parts except the one that has all the parts except for the one that has the airport code in it. And then I'll say city name is equal to city name concatenated with parts at bucket I concatenated with a space. So we'll let it rebuild the city name. And then I can put in the extra here, city name. All right, so this is when we click on something on that detail screen to take us to another version of the detail screen. All right, so I was already extracting the airport code before, and now I'm also going to get the city name. And then where we actually fill in that city name is, where did I put it? Here's the set text. So I'm going to say string city name is equal to this dot get intent dot get string extra city name. And then we'll set the text to city name concatenated with, well, let's do a space dash, something like that. Concatenated with that. That should give us city name dash airport code. Nope.
It's not like at least on mine the variable I because we're calling our intent I.
Yeah, it doesn't like it on mine either. So we should probably use a different variable name.
Yep, that was
So this is what I'm wondering about that. So when you have parts that you're splitting, and so they take parts.
His points are going up.
So just help me out real quick. Will this catch a city that's like Las Vegas where you have a space in it?
Yeah, because I think the parts will be Los bucket 0,
Yeah.
Vegas bucket 1. I'm inserting the space between Los and Vegas.
Okay.
Because I'm going through parts. I'm going through everything except the airport code.
Oh, I see. So.
Because I split it on spaces up here.
Right. So the last in this.
Yeah. So Las Vegas would have 3 parts.
Yeah.
Las Vegas airport code.
Okay.
Chicago would have 2 parts. Chicago airport code.
Yeah.
So I'm saying go through all the parts except the last one,
Okay.
which is the airport code, and rebuild your city name and
I
add it.
realize we're iterating through an array. So yeah, you split
Yeah,
it
that's
here.
just from this guy here.
Yep, no, I get it now. And so yeah, since the last one's always the array,
Yeah.
that's slicker than having to assume that an airport code is always 3 characters. This could handle whatever, as long as spaces are being used.
Well, I don't know if it's slicker. I mean, actually, I would say yours is probably if you know the airport code always comes last, and you know it's always 3 characters, then okay, let's say it does.
It does.
Then your best bet would be to I'll just show it. So what I would do here is I would say, first of all, I'd say, let's just do it this way. I would say this guy dot trim. That'll take any extra spaces off either end, just in case there's a space or 2 after the airport code.
Sure.
So now you know for a fact the last 3 elements are the
You're
airport
not
code.
grabbing white space by mistake.
Right. So then you can go ahead and you can get the airport code as selected airport dot substring, starting at selected airport dot length minus, I think it'll be minus 4. Because the length is 1 bucket bigger than.
3 and mine were 5.
Okay, let me think about it. So this is saying what the starting point should be. I don't
I
think
did
so.
3 and mine as well, like John. I did 3 and then selected airport dot length. And
The way substring works is
let me look at my code.
right here. The way substring works is there's 2 versions of substring. There's a version that says starting point inclusive
Yep.
to the end, which is the one that takes 1 parameter, versus starting point inclusive up into but not including the second parameter you give it. So what I'm saying is what bucket do I want to start from? I want to start
So you're doing the
at
inclusive.
bucket. The first element that I want to include in this substring is the length minus 4. The length minus 1 is the last legal bucket. So that's the last part of my thing. Minus 2. It is minus 3. I'm dealing with 4-port codes. So I'm thinking the right way, but I'm using the wrong number. Yeah, it is minus 4, or minus 3 rather, because it's a 3-digit
I
code.
was about to agree with you.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's a 3. Yeah.
even though my code says -3, I was like, I'm fine.
No. Well, but it's for the right reason. So if the length is 20, the buckets are 17, 18, 19. Those are the buckets we want. 20 minus 3 gets you the 17. So that's the first bucket you want, and then you're saying I want the rest. So this will get you the airport code. And then like
Are
that.
there airport codes that are 4? Or is it just only
Well,
No,
that's why I asked him.
definitely not.
And then the rest of it would be selected airport dot substring from 0 up to but not including
Wikipedia says no. It's on Wikipedia.
that guy.
Extremely.
So this would be that's airport code.
How many airports are there?
Yeah, right.
That's
So
city.
it's all a hypothetical thing, or
These are just alternatives. So here's one way to get the airport code in the city, like this. Get it directly like that. Or the other way is split it into parts like I did, and then go through and build up your city name from it here.
Yeah, that's how I was doing mine.
Yeah.
40 and 41. So
So you could choose your poison. They both will do the same thing.
I'm just coming from the paradigm I program, and that's how we do stuff is substring everything.
Which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, this is probably more accurate if you know for a fact the airport codes are always 3. If you know it's always 3, why should you go through the process of rebuilding a city name from parts when you already have it
Just
here?
grab it in one line.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll leave them in there as comments. Alternative way of getting code and name. All right, so we're adding airport codes and city name as my extras, and then I'm grabbing those two things from this intent and just filling in that text dealy thing with it. Let's go ahead and make sure that guy works. Then we'll add our button for resyncing cache. All right, so there's Milwaukee and MKE, and it's got the double quotes around it, but who cares? All right, and I'll go ahead and do I do Baltimore? Which did I already click on?
Baltimore.
So there's Baltimore. Did I do Atlanta yet? Oh, Atlanta's a good one though. I always fly through Atlanta. Why I always fly through Atlanta? I taught you this. Is what? You if you have the expensive if you have the expensive premium travel credit cards. I mean the ones that are like $600 a year. They come with like priority pass club access. These are cards that you spend on and then get rid of. This is like I have Chase Sapphire Reserve, which I pay like $600 a year for, but I get something called priority pass, which gets you into the airport lounges. Almost all of the good airport lounges are in the international terminals. Now, most of the time when you're flying domestically around the United States, right? There might be another airport than this, but to my knowledge, the only airport in the United States that you can get to the international terminal from the domestic terminal without going through security is Atlanta. You take the train to stop 9, international terminal. It's a 15-second walk from there. Just go up the escalator. You're at the club. Sit there and drink for a while, then go and catch your Southwest flight.
What's in the club?
I mean, so it's like all you can eat food. So it's not like it's a buffet thing. So maybe a step up from Sodexo or similar. Yeah. But they have candy and stuff. But then they have an open bar. And then like fancy coffee, cappuccinos, and lattes, and all that stuff.
So you can literally just use your credit card, just go to there and live there.
Well, yeah, you have the card's called a priority pass. That comes with your credit card. You apply for it, but yeah, you just go and hang out there. We had a 3-hour layover in Atlanta on our way to New Orleans, and we just hung out in there for 3 hours.
Like, is there any limit to how long you can hang out there?
Well, they usually have a posted limit, but I've never run into an issue.
I was gonna say.
Technically, they can kick you out. Usually, the limit's like 2 hours or something like that. But priority pass on the good cards is something called priority pass select. I can bring in as many guests as I want. Some lounges will limit you to like 3 or 4 guests, but otherwise you got to pay like $60 a pop to go into those lounges. But the important thing is that the lounges are in the international terminals. So you can only use that perk if you're flying internationally. But in Atlanta, you can use it if you're flying domestically because you can get to the international terminal using the train that's inside the airport.
I'm just thinking if you live close to the airport, you just go over there for every meal.
No, you wouldn't. You'd have to get through. It's post security.
I know, but like.
You have to have a ticket to get through security.
Oh,
come on.
How to get through security?
Well, no, I already got the solution for that. Get like a low-paying job, like as a janitor or something like that. And like work real minimal shifts.
Yeah, there we go.
Just show up.
Or just say.
But actually, all the lounges you have to have a ticket for that day. They scan your ticket.
Okay, all right.
Wow.
So is it worth it?
But that was always a risk when I first did that. Will they let me in on a domestic ticket, even though it's in the international terminal?
Did they?
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're paying for this card.
They don't care about that. I mean, this isn't. I mean, this lounge is just yeah, it's a business. There's 50 different brands or lounges and stuff like that. It just happens to be that they're all members of Priority Pass in terms of like reciprocity. If you have Priority Pass, you get access to this lounge and this lounge. the lounge in Hyderabad, India, made me home like made to order omelets and brought it to my table. And they were taking my order. Most of them have that where they come around and ask you if to refill your drinks and stuff.
Wow.
It's
I'm getting hungry.
so there's your travel hack tip. If you can't fly direct, fly through Atlanta. If there's any sort of like sometimes I'll purposely get a long layover.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, you ever been in a situation where you fly to Atlanta and it actually makes no sense, but like let's say you're going to Florida, but you choose instead of a direct flight to fly to Atlanta.
Oh, 100%.
Really?
Oh yeah. Especially if I was gonna get into Florida like after dinner time or something, like was kind of late anyways. I'll just get into Florida later, and I'll have dinner and drinks and stuff in Atlanta. Oh, and you probably save some money on that ticket. Direct flights are usually a little bit more, so you break up the flight. Plus, the flight from Atlanta to Fort Lauderdale is 40, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
That's
I know, it's
probably an hour and 20 minutes or something. Okay, so we have this guy filling in with some information now. Technically, I think we had double quotes around it in our first one. We'll just say that's okay. Oh, whatever.
Or maybe this is my second one. Yeah, Milwaukee had quotes around it.
Yeah, it was from our first list, the first list screen we had. From our big list of world airports, I think we have double quotes around our stuff. So we can certainly go through and clean up our data, but we're not going to. Not if you go to one of your cache pages.
No, the cache ones are really fast. But now the other ones are taking longer. So I'm just going to click on all the good ones.
Hey, see how fast Atlanta is now?
I know. I'm doing all the good airports that I will ever fly out of.
Okay, so
I think that, this might be tacking on more homework, but I think that it would be useful to be able to see like Milwaukee and Baltimore, so that like there's like an arrow or something where you're seeing where you're going. So
yeah. That we're about to write that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason to do it, where we don't have reloading the same screen over and over again. We can kind of build up our destinations.
Or couldn't you even do like you have on that screen you have a button, and when you click that button, it'll take you to another screen where it just lists out your flight so far. So like that would be a really simple way of saying like you wouldn't have to have a re-update to a new activity or new class or whatever. You can just have like a button right next to Atlanta up there, and then you click see my itinerary.
Yeah,
thing.
right.
And then click that, and it'll just go number 1, boom, 2, boom, 3. So it's literally just reading the stack that you've already made.
Yep.
That's not too bad.
No, it's easy. Yeah, so we won't do that for homework. We'll do that. We'll do that in class.
Yeah.
That's an in-class exercise. The homework will be your worst nightmare. All right, let's take 5 minutes, quick break, and then we'll finish up our last part here.